Welcome back, Coast to Coast. Kevin Bunk, Gabe Zoda coming to you every week. This week on a Tuesday, as Thursday is Thanksgiving. Gabe, I don't think we've entered an episode to talk basketball yet with as much content as we have today to go through. This week in the NBA has given us a lot, so we are excited, and we will start with last night's Knicks game, and I'll let you take the floor.
I mean, the Knicks, what a weird team. I saw so many tweets yesterday and last night saying, how does this team go from that game against Utah, to which they looked absolutely lifeless, to the game against the Nuggets, to where you're beating a really good Western Conference team, and not only just beating them, you're destroying them. That right there just shows you kind of where this team is at, right? You can see the flashes of the Knicks becoming a top-tier Eastern Conference team. But they still need to get that consistency. They still need to get that final touch in order for them to really propel themselves into that top tier conversation against the Boston Celtics, which is obviously where you want them to be. Loved that win last night. It seemed like everyone was hitting shots. Love what I'm seeing from the whole entire roster. And that's from Jalen Brunson all the way down to Cam Payne really on the bench. Just everything is going well. Right now, the chemistry is starting to click with that Knicks team, and they're not even healthy yet.
Every other night, the Knicks feel like the 2017 Warriors, 2018 Warriors, and the nights in between, you're right, like the Utah game, it's just a total dud game. But the Knicks still have the reinforcements of Achua and Robinson, who have been both doing on-court work, so you hope they come back soon. It's becoming clear to me that the key to this team, and we saw it last year at the end, obviously, this is a different group, but same principle. OG Anunoby on the floor is almost the key to the Knicks unlocking what they can become. And his offensive boom is so unprecedented. Now, when they gave him the extension, I had thought what I liked about OG in New York was he had players around him in Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Hartenstein took such a big role offensively. Randall, while he was playing, obviously the second option on the Knicks. But Anunoby was able to just be more aggressive and take more chances than he was, but they weren't necessarily dropping. He was still at that 15 points per game, but you saw him getting a little more comfortable offensively and doing things you wouldn't see him do in Toronto. And now, after a full offseason, it's clear that this guy is so comfortable in this offense. Do you think this is something that is sustained throughout the season? Not dropping 40 every couple nights, which was, of course, his career high last night, but do you think we see him become that 21, 22 point per game scorer?
I think he can easily be a 20 point per game scorer. And you want to know why? Because he doesn't force anything. That's the kind of guy that you just love on your team, a guy that just naturally is going to score in the flow of the offense. He might have a couple games where he's dropping 12, 10, but it's not going to be on inefficient shooting. It's just because the flow of the offense didn't go towards him that night. Other nights, though, you're seeing more willingness to shoot the three ball off the catch and shoot, where sometimes he might have taken that dribble in, tried to maybe not be as confident. Now he's just pulling straight the shot, and it's going in a majority of the time. I think in the last week or two of games, he's averaging has a 45% three-point percentage. It's just been great to see on that end as well. I mean, this guy's literally a Kawhi Leonard light. It's not hyperbole either. Right now, you're watching this guy be a defensive menace and then come onto the offensive half and be a mid-range master. He's hitting a couple three-point shots, getting transition dunks as well. This is literally what Kawhi Leonard used to do when he was healthy and playing. And now the Knicks have that guy as a third option as their scorer, maybe fourth in some games as well if McCall's hitting shots. I mean, the luxury that this Knicks team has right now, and we can talk about if they need to add anything or whatever, the luxury they have right now in the depth of their scoring has been, I don't think the Knicks have seen anything like this in their entirety of their history.
No, they haven't. Last night actually felt, I don't know the stats on it. I haven't seen any yet, but last night felt as if it could have been the best regular season Knicks offensive performance in franchise history. They just took it to Denver. But the crazy part of this whole offensive explosion to start the year, which kind of was expected when you add Cat, his efficiency is just so much better than Randall's. But where is Bridges? He's the worst player out of the guys that are getting minutes right now. And you can look at that two ways. You can say, that's concerning. You give up 6 first-round picks. He's riding the bench in the loss a week ago, and late in the game, you have Cam Payne getting the minutes. But I look at it as he's going to find his role in the offense eventually. He's too good of a player to not find an efficient role in the offense. Is he going to be a 26-point-per-game scorer? No, and you really never should have expected him to be that with the Knicks. But he is going to find a groove that makes him a really difficult, pain in the ass type of player for defenses to have to deal with.
I don't know where I stand with Mikal Bridges right now. He is a sub 30% three-point shooter on the season. He is taking a good amount of threes where maybe other times he would just sit in the corner where that's his most efficient spot and kind of wait for his shots. Now he seems like he's trying to force it a little bit more above the break and at the top of the circle. So maybe that's why the percentages are lower, but sub 30% is just not going to do it. You can look at his mid-range game and say, well, that kind of compensates for it. I still think he still needs to find a confidence in that new jump shot that he's doing. And he's lucky that the Knicks team has people to cover his slack for him. And because winning obviously solves and cures and hides all of these things. If Mikal Bridges was on a team that wasn't performing, we'd be having a much different conversation about Mikal Bridges right now. He would be in every single trade situation that we could ever think about. But since you appreciate maybe some defensive impact, you appreciate that he's trying, I guess. You appreciate the mid-range game. It looks a little bit better for him. But right now I'm at a crossroads with that guy because, yes, like you said, he does have that potential to be a guy that could get you 25 points in a game. But, I mean, am I really expecting that right now? I don't know where I'm at with Mikal.
Yeah, and I get that. That's definitely fair. I think what I'm seeing with Bridges is, and this sometimes doesn't go away. I'm not saying it goes away so easily that he'll just get his rhythm for sure. But what I'm seeing with him right now, I think he's one of two real big new guys with the Knicks. And the pressure might be so high coming to New York as the new star. You come over from Brooklyn, you hear the noise from Brooklyn. I don't think Bridges, I never did. I didn't think this while he was with the Nets either. I don't think he's like a mentally tough guy the way that Brunson, Hart, OBR. I don't know if Towns is either, but I don't think that they are incredibly mentally tough. Bridges definitely isn't, but he's a good basketball player and definitely cares about winning. But I look at him and I just think he's definitely pressing out there because you have Brunson playing well, OG playing well, who's kind of still a new guy on the block, and Cat is the best player on the team, which was why that trade was so important. Because imagine Randall was struggling right now, DiVincenzo was having the season he's having in Minnesota, which we'll talk about later, and they didn't get Cat, and they had Bridges struggling. You'd be really worried about this Knicks team. They're probably got 6 or 7 wins right now, and they're 3 or 4 games under 500 to start the year. But with Cat, that made it important for them to be able to say one of these two should start hot. Towns is the best scorer on our team, and it's taken some pressure off, but Bridges definitely feels like he's pressing right now. Doesn't look comfortable in a lot of situations.
Yeah, you want to know why this Knicks team right now is the second-rated offense in the NBA? It's because of their passing. Their passing has been spectacular. Right now, over the last 10 games, they lead the NBA in assists per game. Jalen Brunson looks like the next reincarnation of Magic Johnson on the court. 17 assists. 10-plus assists in 4 of his last 5 games. You have even guys like Josh Hart getting into the assists. People are cutting backdoor. This team is a slow offensive team. You look at their pace numbers, they're slow. But what they do is they move off the ball once they get into that half court, and they make efficient looks all the time. That's what gives me confidence about this team, no matter who's hitting shots, no matter who isn't hitting shots. This team just is fantastic at finding open players. You saw in the beginning of the season that they needed that chemistry still. They were turning over the ball a lot more. That's why they started off, 3-4 of the season? But now they're getting that chemistry. They're finding the open teammates, and they're hitting all their shots right now. It's the type of basketball that we look at, especially on the offensive end. Us as basketball fans, more than we are Knicks fans, we see it, and we're like, this is the basketball that you want to see in today's world. The passing, the high motor movement. That's what wins championships. Not the ISO stuff that you saw last year when Jalen Brunson had to do it all on his shoulders every single night. Now it's more of a team effort because everybody's getting involved. That's the biggest jump from last year to this year. And to me, no matter who you put the credit on, it's a whole team effort. I love it. And that's why this team is winning the games, no matter if Mikal is hitting shots or not.
Yeah, think about the Knicks a year ago today to now, and you have no Anunoby trade yet. Obviously, no Towns Bridges trade. And the scorers on the Knicks were Brunson, ball-dominant scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Barrett, moved a lot off ball, but ball-dominant scorer, needs the ball in his hands to get open and score. Randall, probably the most ball-dominant scorer I've ever seen in basketball. And then other than that, you really don't have any efficient scorers. DiVincenzo didn't come around.
Emmanuel Quickly off the bench.
Emmanuel Quickly, yeah, and he's another ball-dominant guy. I forgot to mention him. So now you look at the Knicks, Brunson's still ball-dominant, and I like that in a point guard. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I like what I'm seeing from Brunson the last week. I love a guy who's a ball-dominant, can play ISO guard, but also is facilitating. I actually thought Steph, who is probably the greatest off-ball guard of all time, Steph had that in him, and it was great. Westbrook always had that in him, and it was great. But you have to be able to do the other stuff. Brunson, not as much of an off-ball player than those guys. That's what separates him. But either way, I love this in a guard. And then around him, Anunoby is always cutting, always getting open in space, creating shots without the ball. Towns can create without the ball, and he can play that low post game. He can play the pick and pop game. Bridges, good spacing. Hart is just chaos all over with his movement, but that's the player you have. And then you have Campaign, who has a little bit of a knack for spacing, a little bit of a knack for ball dominant as well. He's a bit of a hybrid there, but not great at either. But that just is exactly what you said. The Knicks are better now. It's because of the way they play, not as much as the players and the talent level themselves.
Do you think this is the best starting five in the league?
I'd still take Boston, but I don't think Cleveland's is better. I'll be honest with you. And I don't think that's bias either. Cleveland, they might have a better basketball team, but I don't think their starting five is better. Let me just look through the standings quick. So there's no one.
Anybody in the West? I mean, you look at OKC, who's the top. You have the Warriors. I'm serious. Like you look at this Knicks team. I think they have the best starting five in the entire NBA. Outside of Boston.
I would take Boston. I'd still take OKC by a very slim margin. I think the Lakers is closer to them than people think, but not better. But maybe offensively, they might have the best offensive starting five. But their defense is coming together too. I don't know. It's a good question. It's not. You can't just scoff at that question and say, "Oh, there's no way they're not even close." There's this many teams. They are as close to Boston as anybody else in starting five alone.
Yeah, I mean, at least on the offensive end, we'll have to see with Kristaps now coming back. Obviously, he's slated to. I think he played his first game last night, or he's slated to come back tonight or whatever. You have to see that. I think that is still number one. But outside of Boston, I take what you get from guys like Josh Hart. I take what you get from what we've seen from OG Anunoby. I take what you get from the duo that might be one of the best, if not the best playing duo right now in Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson over anybody. So it's a question you got to ask. I had to ask it. I wanted to get your opinion because I don't know. I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people want to make it out to be because they hear OG Anunoby, they hear Josh Hart, and a lot of people still have doubt on Jalen Brunson. So they don't think it's all that crazy, all that good of a question. But you see how they're playing, and it's right there.
And people seriously doubt Cat, too, his whole career because he has that kind of – like he's not a real killer in personality. Yes. And he definitely was a softer player as a number one pick coming out and starting his career. But Cat has really proved a lot of people wrong, I think, to start the season. No one's really discussing that. He's proved me wrong in a lot of areas. And I will say his defense has gotten better the last 2-3 weeks. I don't consider him an elite defensive player. We'll talk about Anthony Davis in a second. Like, he's not one of those guys, but he's done a good enough job. He's good against Jokic yesterday. He was good in a few reps against Giannis last week. He was good against, who else am I thinking of?
Embiid.
He was great against Embiid, who was more so terrible in that game. Yeah. But yeah, I like that. I like that. We'll definitely throw that on social media and see what people think about it, because that is a legit conversation where the Knicks rank starting 5-wise. You want to move to the Lakers here, or you got anything else on the Knicks?
Let's go to the Lake Show. Let's do
All
it.
right, Lakers, a strong start as well, 10-6. I'm very high on this team, and I think my sentiment after really being able to watch a few Lakers games and watching what they're actually doing, my sentiment about Anthony Davis needing some help at center is not gone, but I'm really blown away by how great this guy is, Gabe.
It's because of his outside game. Right now, Anthony Davis is shooting more threes than he ever has in his entire career. And that's something that JJ Redick wanted him to do to start the year. That's one of his main things he said. We want AD shooting. Now he's shooting, and he's shooting with confidence right now. Before, you could just leave him open from three, and he would do what any non-shooting big would do, kind of hand the ball off, work a screen and roll. But now you can't play a big drop coverage on him because he'll pop out the three-point line and he'll hit a three. Fine, it might not go in every single time like he's a knockdown guy, but he's a guy that can consistently hit that three-point shot. That's a big difference with his offense and the offense of the Lakers right now. I do have still some concerns. I still think you need a center there because I don't know. I have the same dilemma with Cat, right? Because Cat's scoring at all-time highs. Anthony Davis scoring at all-time highs. If you put a center next to them, all that does is clog the paint and give them less opportunity to get downhill and get to that painted area, get to the free throw line even, and force them to be more perimeter guys. So I don't know if you need a center there, but right now with the toughness and some of these other things and even just longevity and keeping these guys as fresh as possible, I think you need somebody there. But Anthony Davis, I mean, he is, to me, one of the most – I don't know how he doesn't have any Defensive Player of the Years.
I know,
he is fantastic on the defensive end, blocking shots left and right, always up there in Defensive Player of the Year candidates, but never wins one.
And he's an over a steal per game guy. I don't know. We always hate on him, and I actually have more respect for Rudy Gobert as a player than most people do, I think. I think social media has completely tanked his stock unfairly. Yeah. But with that being said, I don't watch Rudy Gobert or even, Joel Embiid was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. People spoke about how great Embiid's defense is. I don't watch these bigs and say they're better than Anthony Davis. He is so much more fluid and athletic, and he's equally the shot blocker. The only guy right now, I mean, Wemby might win the next 10 Defensive Player of the Years, but and that kills Anthony Davis's chances. But Anthony Davis, pound for pound, he's probably the best two-way player in the NBA. And I see that getting thrown out now. Knicks fans saying that with Anunoby because people consider the two-way player argument. They only talk about guards and wings. Yeah. But Anthony Davis is clear cut. Is he not the best two-way player? Maybe Giannis, but he's really got to turn it on defensively. He doesn't do it every night, I feel like. Anthony Davis feels like the best two-way guy.
He is the best two-way player in the league. You want to know why? It's because he was drafted as a defensive guy first. A lot of people forget this. Yeah, he was highly touted coming out of college, but he was defense first. He was the shot blocker first. And then because he was the only player in New Orleans, he had to develop the scoring. He had to develop his bag. And when he was younger, he grew up as a guard, like you see some of these other guys do as well. So he had that offensive fluidity in him. But now he's able to shine. JJ Redick has done a fantastic job of getting him in the right spots, which is something that other teams or other coaches weren't able to do with AD on the Lakers. Now you're seeing him coming into full fruition. And I think he's definitely, I don't think there's anybody close as a two-way player than Anthony Davis right now, just based off of his impact.
Also, you watch the Lakers. I mean, tough to look away from Dalton Connect. We'll have a little bit of a Rookie of the Year discussion way too early. Look at the class. But Connect dropped. You saw the LeBron comment. What did he say? It was you would know it better than I would. About him falling in the draft.
Yeah, he said a couple things. A lot of people were like, they asked LeBron after the games, like, what have you seen in Dalton Connect? And he said, the same shit I saw last year, the same shit I saw when he was in college, the same shit I told you guys last year, because he was in post games during March Madness talking about Dalton Connect. Like it's almost like LeBron made that draft pick. I'm not going to put that out there, but
dude, if he did,
great job. Great draft pick. But, this guy falls to 17 because of his age. And On a championship winning team right now, looking to win one, you need a guy who has that experience. You need a guy who's a little bit older. You don't need these project young gun players. You need a guy that understands how to play in a system. You need a guy that understands how to win basketball games. Dalton Knecht does that, and he's shooting at an unreal rate right now to where every time he gets the ball from behind the arc, contested or not contested, he's putting that thing up and it's going in. And he has that confidence immediately from LeBron to take those shots as well, which is super important when you're playing with star players. This is a guy, I said it on my post, this is a guy that turns this Lakers team back into a contender because this is the guy they've been looking for in free agency with the, Gary Trent Jr.'s and all these other guys that they were rumored to get. They were looking to get a guy who could snipe from behind the arc and a guy that could be a presence on defense as well. This is the free agency get that they've been waiting for the past couple of seasons. It just so happened to drop to them at the 17th overall pick.
I think that the age argument in the draft is so overrated. There's in the NFL draft, in the NBA draft, it's so overrated because, dude, can you play or not? And the way that these guys take care of their bodies, unless they're an NFL player with crazy miles, like a running back with insane miles in college, then I see you steering clear, right? That makes a little bit of sense. But these basketball players take such great care of their bodies. We're watching LeBron at age 39 just dominate. We're watching Curry and Durant in their mid-30s. I know these are special talents, but these guys' bodies, they last. Now an Achilles, an ACL doesn't end a career the way it did 20 years ago. So the only kind of aspect I get is, well, his ceiling, he's reached his ceiling because he's 23, he's not 19. But still, I mean, come on, man. This guy's a really good basketball player. The players that went before him, we got to be kidding with some of these. We all remember watching him fall on draft night, and your only thought, at least my only thought, was he must have something off court that we're concerned about. There's either a failed physical or some sort of, criminal activity that you're saying Dalton Knecht is not a good fit for our basketball team. There's none of that with him. It's literally because he was 23 years old, he fell, and good on the Lakers for taking him. But if he's a good player, he's going to be a good player for the next 10, 15 years. You're really going to be looking back when he's 34, 35 and saying, man, I wish this guy was 31 right now. No, you're not. You're going to be happy you just got 12, 13 good years out of Dalton Knecht. Whatever. My little spiel on the draft. But Lakers look good, man. Still waiting for something from D'Angelo Russell. I know that they're really looking to get him going, but they like the role he's playing. I've read that. They've enjoyed what he's done so far. Is that just trying to raise his trade value? We enjoy the role he's played or not? There was that trade article the other day, or that trade rumor. They won't give him up for nothing, but they would maybe give him up. What do you think about Russell?
Yeah, we got to talk about D'Angelo Russell, right? I mean, you look at some of his shooting numbers. He hasn't scored 20 points this year in a game, and it looks not good, right? His shooting, this is probably his worst shooting year of his career. But let's look underneath the hood a little bit on D'Angelo Russell, right? If you look at the LeBron stat, which I love the stat, but if you look at the LeBron stat, which if you don't know what it is defined as a player's impact on their team per 100 possessions. And there's an offensive LeBron stat, there's a defensive LeBron stat. Right now, D'Angelo Russell is at his best LeBron rating as a Laker. Best offensive LeBron impact, career high in defensive impact on the court. Right? He's shooting the highest quality shots he's ever shot in his life. But the only thing that he's not been doing is making those shots. We all know D'Angelo Russell is probably a B-tier shooter when it comes to looking at these guys. Right now, he's an F-tier shooter. Are we going to sit here and say that he's not going to turn it back up to a B-tier guy like his career average is? You have to think that those numbers will get back to that rule of numbers and get back to that average. And when that happens, D'Angelo Russell goes from a guy to where he's not doing a lot to where he's doing everything with this team. I think that's where the Lakers at with D'Angelo Russell. I think they're waiting for him to turn it on. If it doesn't happen in the next 10, 15 games, then fine. We can have this conversation about getting him out of there. But right now, if you look at his impact both offensively and defensively, they're at a career high. The only thing that's missing is him making shots, and I think he can get back to that.
Yeah, I can see your perspective there. Russell right now shooting 38% from the field, which
Yeah.
is just abysmal, uncharacteristic, everything you want to call it. And then 28% from three, only getting to the line about once a game. So he's struggling right now just to knock those shots down. You're right. He's not taking these horrid shots, but it's another twofold thing here, right? Let's say by the deadline, Lakers are going to be good at the trade deadline. Like unless they get some catastrophic injury bug, they're going to be a good team at the deadline. So we know that. Preface this with that. At the deadline, if Russell's playing well and he's hitting his shots again, you keep him, you're happy with the guy you have. But at the deadline, if he's not, that's a great guy for a team who's a fringe contender to take a chance on because he's just not knocking down his shots. He starts knocking down his shots, he's a starter on 28 teams, 29 teams. So I get your perspective there. I like it. Another situation where maybe NBA social media is completely overblowing a player being bad who's really not playing poorly, just not making shots. Sometimes that's tough, man. Shot making is tough sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're just in a slump. Right now, you're seeing it all on social media. People didn't want D'Angelo Russell on this team to begin the year. They wanted him traded. Now that he's not shooting well, they get it. But this is just what NBA social media is. It's terrible. It's kind of awful the way that the NBA is covered. Just in general, if a guy's hitting shots, he's the greatest ever. If he's not hitting shots, he's the worst ever. They don't look at the underlying numbers, right? It's the same with baseball. If a guy is in a big slump, okay, he's in a big slump, but let's look at his exit velocities. Let's look at some other things, the expected batting average. And then you get these other people that'll say, well, if you have to look at these under the cover numbers to really support your claim, then you don't know. Then you probably have your answer right there. Look, at the end of the day, once again, on a team that's playing well anyway, if a guy is struggling and you know that there are some underlying numbers that tell you that he can get back to a normal rate or a better than normal rate, you take that flyer on a team that's winning games because guess what? It's not hurting you right now. When it starts to really hurt you, okay, we could have that conversation, but right now it's not.
The Bridges conversation we had before, what is different about a guy like Bridges and a guy like Russell is exactly what you just said. Bridges, you look under the hood and you look at the numbers that aren't presented to you on a regular basis, and you're saying he's really not playing efficient in his role. He's not taking the open shots that he should be getting when you consider the rest of the offense, but Russell is. So you have guys like Bridges who you're saying he's just got no idea what his role is right now. He's really trying to figure that out. And then a guy like Russell where you turn and say he knows his role. He's definitely playing the role JJ Redick wants him to. There's no question about that. Yep. JJ Redick is putting him in positions to succeed as a third or fourth option, and there is no issue with that. It's a good job by Redick. It's one of my favorite things he's done as the coach this year. He's putting the third or fourth best player on the court in positions to succeed, especially the guards. But Russell just needs to start making shots. So those numbers that aren't presented to you on a regular basis definitely have some value here. Let's go back to Dalton Connect, talk a little rookies, rankings, rookie of the year, candidates here. This NBA draft, this past one, we all know we sat there draft night the weeks leading up to it and said, this is a really weak class. And it is. It's very watered down now. There's a lot of wild cards going high in the lottery. Normally, you felt better about the players going 1 through 16, even 1 through 20 on draft night, especially 1 through 5. That's where it's gotten severely watered down. But a couple mid-round rookies out of college, not European players, not G League players, are the ones making noise. Connect's one of them. Jared McCain's one of them. Which guy do you think here is having the better start?
I think it's easily Dalton Connect. You want to know why? Because he's impacting a team that wins. I'm not going to sit here and say Jared McCain's rookie of the year because he's scoring 30 points on a team that sucks. We're not going to do that because we could have a conversation about the numbers and how Jared McCain is scoring more points, but he's getting the ball more. He has to score more points because his team is awful. I mean, he's playing on a lottery team right now with the 76ers given their injuries. The Lakers are a top 4 seed in the Western Conference right now. And Dalton Connect is still giving you 20 points a night on hyper-efficient shooting. That, to me, is impact. When I look at these rookie of the years, these players for these awards, I look at impact on the court. How does he affect the game? If a guy is scoring 30 points and still getting blown out by 10 plus, you don't get any impact from me. On the flip side, if Dalton Knecht is going on a rampage, hitting 5 threes in a row to win your team a game because they were down before you got on that rampage, that to me means so much. So to me, it's easily Dalton Knecht. People who want Jared McCain to win it, just like his TikTok and all the social media presence that he's doing. To me, it's absolute nonsense. If you actually watch these games, it's easily Dalton Knecht for me.
Yeah, I'm not easily there. I love both players, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I really don't even want to pick one. I love both of them, and I think that there's been a couple of good rookies behind them too. But McCain, since you just laid out the Knecht blueprint, I'll just talk about McCain for a second. His off-ball maturity as a guard who had the same style of play in college. He wasn't the ball handler in college. He's not coming in. He was always the off-ball catch-and-shoot guy. People say, oh, look, it's like Steph out there. Well, how about Klay Thompson? Klay Thompson moved off the ball when he was the second best guard on the court. That's how I feel about McCain, but he's knocking the shots down. He's doing a good job. You're right. He's not drawing a ton of attention. The team doesn't draw a ton of attention from defenses as a whole. The team has no respect. They're down by 40 in the second half in a lot of these games, down by 20 plus almost every night now in the second half, just getting killed. They feel like the worst team in the NBA right now. And McCain is capitalizing on his ability to attack opposing defenses who are probably just playing on their heels instead of really being up and urgent. But that being said, I think if you're a Sixers fan, you got to be pretty down right now on Embiid and Paul George. That's just an easy given. If you're not, you're just way too biased. But the prospect of Maxey and McCain as a backcourt offensively is very exciting for the future. I love Tyrese Maxey. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I'm done with Embiid and PG here, though, man. I mean, we talked about it last night, I think, with Anunoby and the Max deal that he got, and Sixers fans wanted Paul George. NBA media wanted Paul George on the Sixers, thought he was the better of the two players. So wrong, and real basketball fans know that. But yeah, this is exciting to see some rookies coming in year one and impacting, but Knecht has a maturity about himself as well, and he's got such a great build for his position. Yeah. I'm really high on both of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, right? You see the numbers, you see the potential, you see just what they're doing on a night-to-night. You have to like both of them. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like Jared McCain because that would just be wrong or insensitive. I don't even know what the word would be, but it would be stupid of me to do that. You got to love what you're getting from these guys. To me, I look at impact so much. So to me, I'm an impact guy. Dalton Knecht gives me more impact. But as you said, if you're a Sixers fan, you're loving this backcourt right now. And if you could have an off season or two where you really restructure the front court, you really give yourself a nice forward to pair along with these two guys, you could have your team really rebuilt in the next 2-3 seasons here without much of a sweat, without much of a dip. So I love the prospect of those two guys in the backcourt. I don't like the prospect of them as a Knicks fan, but as a Philly fan, you really love what you see there.
I will say on the topic of rookies, Steph Castle has looked terrific in San Antonio as well. Really good defender. Just a huge part of them having some success these last few weeks. Underrated. I think he's only averaging 10 a game right now, but he's getting up into the high teens and scoring over the last 2 weeks. So high on this rookie class, excited about it. And for me as a college basketball fan, I know you're into college basketball as well, I like to see that it's college basketball guys succeeding. I think that we're getting a little crazy on the train of the international players are great. Like, there's no doubt about that. The international players are terrific, and the brand of basketball is really tough and really exciting overseas. But just because a guy played overseas, I don't think that should give him a leg up on guys who played college. And just because a guy played G League, I don't think that should give him a leg up. And I think GMs have started to overlook actual performance and look a lot at, well, where did you play and how did you fare there, which has some merit, but like to see these college guys coming out and succeeding, trying to bring back the college basketball pipeline to the NBA. Also, Golden State Warriors. We've talked about them. They are back. They look great. I think their off-ball movement, we've been talking about it all episode, off-ball movement. Golden State does it better than anybody. They are terrific. Their ball movement in general has been terrific. Buddy Hield has been a lot of fun playing next to Steph. All around, I am high on Golden State in this Western Conference.
You have to love the way they play offense right now. Andrew Wiggins is back to scoring in that mid to high teens per game. But let's look at it. What made the Warriors really the Warriors when they were winning championships? Yeah, casuals will tell you it's the offense. It was really that defense spearheaded with Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and the rest of that group with Iggy and all of them. You look at this team right now, they're fourth in defensive efficiency. To me, that tells me so much because that means you're getting the effort from everybody on that court to say, we know that we might not have that extra talent like we had with Kevin Durant and all these other guys, but we have the ability, we have that championship mindset, that heart and grit, the way we play right now, to where Andrew Wiggins looks like a really good two-way player right now, to where Steph Curry is getting in the passing lanes, playing some of his best defense in his entire career this season. Draymond Green will always be solid on that end as well. And then you look at some of their wings, they're doing their jobs as well. So to me, defense obviously wins championships, but especially with this Warriors team and the team we'll talk about in a little bit in the Houston Rockets, the defense of those guys have been fantastic. And you got to give credit to Steve Kerr for that, right? I mean, a lot of people, even myself, I'll criticize Steve Kerr. I think he's one of the most overrated coaches of all time. But on the flip side, in this group specifically, he's instilled, along with the leadership group on that court, he's instilled that championship mindset to say, hey, once again, all we need to do is show effort night in and night out, and they're all bought into that message.
Yeah, besides the fact that they're the fourth best team in the league right now and second best in the West, that's why I wanted to bring this up. I think you got to throw Kerr some credit because he never gets any, and a lot of times he really doesn't deserve much, but yes, you got to throw him the credit here for what he's done with this team. I will say the one negative about Golden State before we move off of them, just a quick one here, is I don't think that they're very good offensively after Steph. It's just a very dull offensive group after Curry. I don't trust Buddy Hield to continue scoring even at the rate he is, which is 15 points per game right now, but very efficiently. I don't expect that to keep up. I don't love Andrew Wiggins against teams that have multiple wing defenders. He just does not impress at this point in his career. Kuminga is their fourth leading scorer. He's averaging 13 a game. You get nothing from Draymond. You offensively, defensively, rebounding, of course, you get productive play out of Draymond, but offensively, there's just nothing anymore in the tank. Gary Payton gives them absolutely nothing. I know that they probably were hoping that they can get a little bit of a spark from him off the bench. Every team that gets Gary Payton is starting to feel that way and being disappointed. But overall, Melton, Looney gives you absolutely no offense, and he's their leading rebounder, so he has to play. He's the best rebounder on the team. Offensively, they're just not good, man.
No, I mean, they're not great. It's one of those things where if those guys, those top three guys behind Steph can be consistent, then this team could be a pretty good team. Right now, I think they're top 10 in offensive efficiency, so they're not bad. But do you think that these guys will stay consistent? Do you think that Buddy Hield, to where we've seen him go on super long shooting droughts and become ineffective, unplayable at times? We saw him in Philly. He was unplayable in the playoffs. Yeah. Will that return? If that happens, then this team, to where, I mean, you saw them lose last night to the Nets. I mean, they were up by 20 in that game. The Nets looked lost. And then all of a sudden, Dennis Schroeder comes out in the fourth quarter, scores 17. You had Cam Thomas doing what he always does. Cam Johnson looks good. They played harder than the Warriors did in that fourth quarter, ended up winning that game by 8 points. I mean, that's not a loss you can ever have if you want to really win a lot of games in the NBA season. So I think some concerns on them falling off are very, very valid for sure for this year.
Especially losing that game at home last night, too. Like, you cannot lose that game at Golden State. Let's move on. Your boys here, the Houston Rockets. I will just give the floor to you.
Yeah, I mean, the Houston Rockets, what can you say? A lot of people, when they talk about the Houston Rockets, they see them right now third in the standings, and they're like, this got to be a fluke, right? I mean, no way the Houston Rockets are really this good. It's not a fluke at all. Right now, they're one of the best, if not the best, defensive teams in the entire league. They have 3 players in the top 100 of defensive rating. Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Dylan Brooks, surprisingly, is their best defender. It's not surprising at all. And this team has just found the spark and found out what everyone has to do on that roster. Everyone looks at this team. If you don't watch the Rockets, they say, well, Jalen Green's their best player, right? No, it's Alperen Sengun. He's really the most impactful player on that team. He's going to get you 18 points a night. He's going to get you a lot of rebounds and assists as well. He's pretty much Jokic light on this team. And you get some other guys on the outside shooting well. Dylan Brooks is having a pretty good year on the offensive end as well. And then you get the spark from Jalen Green. This team up and down was built really well. I know a lot of people didn't think this team would be that great, but you're getting contributions from Fred VanVleet as well. I love what I'm seeing from the Rockets. Is this sustainable? Well, we could have that conversation at another time. But right now what we're seeing a really damn good basketball team.
And this is no surprise coming in the second year now, right, of Udoka being there. But you knew that he was going to turn this into something special. What he did in Boston was really impressive because he takes what Brad Stevens had done already, and you're kind of saying, yeah, well, he was great on the floor, on the side.
You talking about Ime Udoka just makes me laugh. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, warranted.
That's all.
But yeah, great basketball coach. Great basketball coach. Seems like good guy, and he's doing a great job here. But you mentioned one of my favorite players in the entire league right now, Alperen Sengun. If you don't know him, you're not watching the NBA close enough, because he is becoming one of the best young stars in the league. I don't know if there is a center under 22 besides Wemby that is on the level of Sengun. Am I missing anybody there? He is such a great basketball player. I don't know if he's quite 7 feet, but he's got great reach. I think he's 6'11". Great reach, great score, though. What's he averaging right now? Like 17?
Yeah, 18.
17 points, 10, 11 rebounds, and maybe like 6 assists. He's great. Just a tough player, and he runs that whole offense for Houston. You look at Houston's team breakdown of scoring, and Sengun, I just want to see, he's at 5 assists per game right now. So 18 points, 5 assists, and 10 rebounds. And you look at their breakdown of scoring, Jalen Green, 18, Sengun then with 18, VanVleet with 14, Brooks with 12, Eason 11, Smith with 11, Thompson with 11. So you have, 7 players in double figure scoring this year. That's the way to combat not having that dominant ball, ISO scorer that's just dropping 25 a night. They don't have that. They combat that with great defense and a center who is able to facilitate and run the entire offense from inside. Also, the veteran signings of VanVleet and Brooks. VanVleet, we laughed at the contract, but you got to get a good player, a good veteran guard in there with that situation. They did. That worked out great. But getting Dylan Brooks away from Memphis, where I think the culture was a little too loose, is huge, because he went from being the meme of the league while still being a great player. He's a first All-NBA, first, second defensive team guy every year, and nobody wanted him because of his antics. Houston says, let's do this. This is a good player, and it's paid great dividends for them.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who watches LeBron, who loves LeBron as much as I do, you'd think I'd despise this guy, Dylan Brooks. Those are the type of players that I love the most. The guys who are so hard-nosed, that take no challenge, doesn't take no for an answer in terms of who they're going to get. They always want to guard the best players. Look at the Lance Stevensons. Look at the Dylan Brooks, right? These are the guys that I love the most to watch, because they are the nuisance players that you despise on other teams. But when they're on your team, everybody loves that player. Those are the guys that galvanizes an entire team, that puts on really sets the tone for what a team or what a championship team needs in order to win. They need that effort. They need that grit. They need that extra edge. And some teams, especially in the NBA, you know how lazy they can get on offense and on defense as well. You get a guy that's going to give you 48 minutes of no nonsense, that's a guy that you want on your team. That's a guy that you want to build a franchise around, as long as those antics don't get in the way. They got in the way in Memphis, as you mentioned. They're not in the way at all with the Rockets. Nobody really talks about it anymore unless he's playing the Lakers. So that to me has been the biggest change with Dillon Brooks.
Let's look within the Western Conference to the Timberwolves, who contrarily are the biggest surprise in a negative way in this conference. Houston surprised us at how good they've been. Minnesota has been a surprise at the fact that they are sitting in 11th or maybe 12th place. And 11th place, 8-8. That's the story of the Western Conference, though. If you're 500, you're not in the playoffs. At this moment. A lot of games left. We're all certain the Timberwolves will be there. But let's reflect a little bit on their end of this Towns deal, because we're all high on what the Knicks got in a center having the best offensive year of his career, bringing together the offense. They seem to be scoring 130-plus points every other night because of Cat largely. But on the other side of this, it's not been as smooth of a start for the Timberwolves.
And it's exactly what I expected. You're getting a guy to compare with who was it? Anthony Edwards, excuse me. You're getting a guy to pair with Anthony Edwards, and they just don't fit together. You're not going to have Julius Randle being a high pick and roll guy. It doesn't make sense. And then Dante DiVincenzo, he's not hitting a lick on the offensive end. So what do you do with him, especially if he's not giving you much of anything on the defensive end either? This is a team and a situation to where we all said it, and it might still be true that both teams won this trade. We were saying it first week of Coast to Coast. Oh, both teams are happy. Not anymore. The Minnesota Timberwolves are looking back at that trade and saying, wow, that guy's scoring 30 points a night on really efficient shooting, especially from behind the arc, and we can't get anything. Remember, this Timberwolves team played with a lot of energy, played with a lot of movement. They were running up and down the floor because they're a young team. And guess what they don't do anymore? They don't run up and down the court. They don't do anything because Julius Randle does what Julius Randle does. He clogs your offense. You sit there standing until the end of the shot clock, and then you're sitting there saying, well, we got to throw something up, so here we go. This is why I never really liked Julius Randle to begin with. He just clogs things up. He's a great player, a good player, but he's not a guy that's going to end up winning you championships. He's just not.
I think also part of the Cat trade was misevaluating Naz Reid. To this point, Naz Reid's playing 24 minutes. He was supposed to be the player who steps in and replaces not all of, but some of what Cat did next to Rudy Gobert and for Anthony Edwards as a forward. And Naz Reid's been bad to start the year. I don't want to say bad, but he's been very average. 13 points. He's only got 5 rebounds a game right now because he doesn't really play down low much. They let Gobert handle that, and I get the style that they play in Minnesota. But they put a lot of eggs into the Naz Reid basket, and it has not gone in their favor at all. Once again, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season yet, but we're approaching that mark in a week and a half, 2 weeks from now for every team. And Minnesota is getting nothing from DiVincenzo, 9 points a game over 26 minutes, nothing from Naz Reid. You know that Jaden McDaniels is not going to give you this offensive explosion at any point in the season. Now DiVincenzo sounds like he's frustrated with his role. He's only started 1 game. It sounds like Randle and Gobert don't get along. And let's be honest, Gabe, you said it basically in just a longer form. Julius Randle's 21 points a night are not an impactful 21 points.
No, and they're not, and they never will be an impactful 21 points. He had that game-winning shot that made Knicks fans go, "Oh, I miss Julius Randle," for like a day. That because he dropped 35 points in that game, and everyone said this is what's going to be for Julius Randle now moving forward. It's just not what it is with Randle, and that's exactly what he gives you. He gives you a night or two in a month where you're like, wow, this guy's fantastic. But then on the other times, he just doesn't show what you need him to. And this is what it is. I hate to be right about this. I really do, Kevin, because Julius Randle, great guy. We all know his whole family, really fantastic, upstanding people. So when I talk badly about him, I'm not talking badly about him. But on the court, it's just not what it was supposed to be. I don't know what their mindset was, Minnesota was, and maybe you detailed a little bit with Naz Reid. I don't know what their mindset was bringing him in the first place to think that was going to make things work, but it just hasn't. And now you have to move on, and you have to ask yourself, do we move on from another player? Do we move on from Julius Randle? He's eligible to be traded on December 15th, I'm pretty sure. So can you do that? Do you want to do that? That's a real question you have to ask now.
You made a video also a week or two ago about Towns' passing ability, and the Timberwolves lack facilitation. Conley leads the team with 4 assists. Yeah. Anthony Edwards is not a great facilitator, and he really shouldn't have to be on this team. He is the guy. He should be the one that people are creating for. You don't have any production now from the 3 bigs on your squad with Reed, with Randle, or Gobert in passing, and DiVincenzo is not an exceptional facilitator in any way. So they miss Cat as a whole offensively. I mean, it's not just his scoring, it's the way that he brought the team together. And I think that they severely misevaluated his role and just focused so hard on getting rid of the contract.
Yeah, because that's a big money contract, but they shouldn't. If that was this much of a worry, why give him that contract to begin with? Like that's the biggest thing for me. You knew the guy was valuable. You gave him this contract to begin with. He was still playing fantastically as well. So it's not like he was like a Daniel Jones where you paid him and then he flopped. No, you paid this guy and he stayed good. He stayed really good on this team. They saw that defensive nonsense. They tried everything they could. They got Ant. They got Gobert around him as well to try to enforce that defensive presence. I don't think that was ever really the issue on this team. I think that, if anything, Gobert was the issue on that team from disallowing Cat to really explode on the offensive end. I think that was more of a problem than Cat taking up a lot of cap space.
I wanted to mention this before when we were discussing the Lakers and Davis and Towns with the center. I think maybe the issue that Minnesota made with Gobert was they acknowledged what we are acknowledging with Towns and saying, well, there's situations where he needs a center next to him. He needs a guy like Mitchell Robinson next to him in a lot of situations. That is just a fact. And so does Anthony Davis. These hyper-scoring bigs need situations where there is a center to carry the load down low. But the problem that Minnesota may have made, and I'm not saying it is, I just thought of this, so I haven't really given it much thought.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a guy that has to play 35 minutes a night at center might be a problem, because when Mitchell Robinson comes back, it's hard to imagine he even starts. And we spoke about Precious Achiuwa starting a week or two ago, but the way the Knicks are gelling, it's hard to imagine he even starts. But you also need a guy that you can just pull off the bench while Towns stays on the court and say, all right, let's push you out here. You're not really getting the mismatch that we usually get at center. You're not capitalizing on it. We got to put a defensive guy in and put you out at power forward and try and stretch the floor a little bit with you and keep a guy down low in the post to rebound and grab our threes. Rudy Gobert has to play the whole game. You're paying him to play the whole game. He's too good to play, or he's too high profile to play the whole game or to be on the bench. So maybe that was what really threw a wrench in it. Once again, just Minnesota's front office misevaluating their roster.
I think that's exactly what it is. And you'll see the Knicks do that. You'll see the Knicks now when Mitch Rob comes back, he's not going to start. He's going to play in situations within the game. I think that is the situation that you need, and that's where you can capitalize on having Cat and another center there. You cannot have a guy making that paint clogged. That's because that's what happens. You clog the paint, and then guess what? You force Cat to play in the perimeter, shooting more threes, shooting more other shots, instead of him being able to flow in the offense, get downhill on the pick and rolls, get those dunks, get those N1s. It takes a whole aspect out of that Bigs game, whether it's AD, Cat, no matter what. And now you'll see, and it really did a massive effect on that team in the Minnesota Timberwolves, because now what do? Now you don't have that. You have a guy in Julius Randle, and you think, okay, this makes more sense positionally, but skill-wise, you lose all of it.
Yep, exactly. Let's talk about another disappointing power forward. Zion Williamson drops his agent's CAA. Now, the exact wording in the article is that they part ways, but it does sound like, and has been indicated that Zion is the one that decided to dump the agency. Of course, for CAA, he is a big money client, whether he's a good basketball player or not. That's what they care about. And he is a good basketball player. That's what's almost the most disappointing thing about the whole Zion situation is he's a good basketball player who never plays and seems to care more about what he does off the court than on the court.
He is the most disappointing superstar of all time, in my opinion, because you see that guy's body coming out of high school. And now you see him now at, what is he, however old he is.
24.
And he's 24 years old. You look at his body right now, and it's just not in a peak athlete state right now. It's not at all. And I know this has been a big talking point with Zion. Oh, Zion's fat. Zion's this, that. I'm not going to say Zion's fat. I'm not going to say he's on anything, but he's definitely not disciplined in a workout program. He's definitely not disciplined in keeping his body in shape, right? You look at guys like LeBron, 39 years old. He is chiseled like a rock. You look at guys like Zion Williamson. There was a picture of both of them together. Zion looks like he's a dad. He looks like he's a mid-30s dad right now, the way his body is. It's absolutely disrespectful to the game. And if I was an agency, I would see that guy and I would say there's no real future in this guy anyway. He might be high profile. He might get views on social media. But in terms of his future and what he's going to do in this league, I don't think it's going to be all that much because of the fact that he doesn't respect the game. He doesn't respect his body enough in order to stay in this league a long time. It's the reason why he has these injury problems. It's the reason why he'll never not have these injury problems. It's not because his body's brittle. It's because he doesn't take care of it the right way. And that, to me, is the biggest point. And he wants to talk about, oh, I wanted to play in New York. At this point, I don't want that guy anywhere close to New York because I don't want those problems at all.
You think Tom Thibodeau has any interest in coaching this guy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the big market teams with good management, like even JJ Redick now, I think Zion would turn it on in a big market. Lakers, Celtics, Knicks, et cetera, et cetera. But even a guy like JJ Redick, who's running a system with basketball players that want to be there and are really dedicated, because I don't think you can make it on a LeBron team without being dedicated. I'll just say that. I don't think people ever give him credit for that. Guys that slack off don't really stick around in LeBron's world. But those coaches don't want this guy. And remember in college, the way that he blocked shots, the vertical that he had, forget the dunks, the way he got up to block three-pointers, got up to block floaters, he was ridiculously athletic. He'd be the best athlete in the NBA today. That 19-year-old that was at Duke would be the best athlete in the league right now, on par with Giannis or whoever else you want to insert. And we just don't see that at all. We see a glorified stretch big who is just like not an impact player on the game at all. And remember how excited they were when they got the first pick in New Orleans? Like that was the franchise altering moment for them. They had to get rid of Anthony Davis. They were at a point where they couldn't do anything else with him. He had to go to the Lakers. It was right for him. It was right for the organizations. And they got Zion, and it cured that. And how bad Knicks fans wanted Zion. How different do the Knicks look if they get Kyrie, KD, and Zion? It's crazy the way that this guy's career has completely tanked, and it's all on him.
It's disappointing. It is so disappointing because I remember that draft night, they said, oh, keep Zion away from the gumbo. If that's a talking point on night one, you might have to start having a conversation of if that guy was ever a good draft pick. And I know he was definitely the number one pick. I'm not saying otherwise. But you have to ask yourself now, was that really a good pick? Because you look at the franchise in the Pelicans, I'm not sure they made great picks anyway. The guy Dalton Knecht that we talked about for about 20 minutes, that guy was the only reason why he's on the Lakers is because the Pelicans gave them that pick. The Pelicans said, yeah, you guys could have this year's pick. We'll take next year's pick, and we'll move on from there. And guess what? Now it's Dalton Knecht. He might win Rookie of the Year. So great job by the New Orleans Pelicans once again. Their evaluation just doesn't seem to go the right way. The way that they monitor their team, it's a team going into the year. You saw Brandon Ingram. You saw they got DeJounte Murray. They had Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum still on the team. You're like, wow, that's a team full of like B-tier stars, maybe an A-tier if Zion turns it on. But that's a team that could really do something if they all click. Guess what? They stink once again. because Zion disrespects his game. He disrespects the NBA, the team, and his own body. And I think it's the most disappointing superstar we've ever seen because of that talent that you talked about.
No, he is. And then you look back at that draft class, and you had the next 3 picks were Morant, Barrett, and Garland. And right now, I mean, Ja's the best player. That's a definite that Ja's the best player. But it's almost like the Cavs made out the best in that draft by getting Garland, because he's always playing. He's very good. He's better than Barrett. And he's never given them a headache in his whole career. It's crazy how that draft turned out. Real quick, how about Brandon Ingram as a trade candidate? We talked about Jimmy Butler last episode, but it might be time for them to just cut ties with Brandon Ingram because they're terrible. He's still good. A contender will want him on the team. I still think Cleveland is a team that's going to be in the market big for a 2, 3, or 4 at the deadline, and Ingram is one of those guys. I don't know what the money looks like. He's on a big contract, but the Pelicans have to get rid of him because now Zion doesn't even have any value. He's on a supermax, and nobody wants him because he's, if he shows up, you can only rely on him to be your third option anyways. He's like Randall with an inefficient 22 points per game. So I don't even know where the Pelicans go. They feel like they're in the worst shape right there with the Wizards but at least the Wizards don't have these massive contracts on players who aren't a part of their future. I mean, the Wizards have, I know Poole got the big deal, but like that's nothing in the NBA. So I don't know. Pelicans are in the worst spot, man.
Yeah, and it's not a team that I expected to talk about. But once again, remember before the season, everyone was talking about this team being the sneaky surprise team that's going to shock everybody and be a top team in the Western Conference because they saw that culmination of, kind of B tier stars. Now it's nothing. And you can't point it on maybe one of them, but if I had to point it on one of them, it's that Zion never turned it on. It's that Zion has still been a disappointment. I point it all on him, and maybe it's ignorant of me, maybe it's unfair of me, but I'm sorry. This guy was supposed to be the greatest prospect coming out of college since LeBron, and has since been the greatest disappointment that we've seen since, I don't know, who else? Like, I don't know.
It's got to be like Wiggins or Anthony Bennett, but those guys weren't disappointments for the reason Zion is, so it's not even close still.
Yeah, it's a different type of disappointment. To me, it's the worst type of disappointment.
Yeah, it stinks to see as a basketball fan because he was so electric in college, that whole team was, and that whole team translated to the pros from Duke really doesn't look great. Cam Reddish.
How do you get in worse shape when you go to the NBA? He was in better shape in South Carolina in high school than he was in the NBA.
Like, he just cashes, and it's not like he's in worse shape the way you said before. It's not like he's 34 and he's in worse shape. He's 24. He's in his prime. He's about to enter the prime of his life physically, and he's in horrible shape. But he's a classic example of a guy who cashed in and didn't really care much after because he secured the money, and I think that he was financially motivated while he was in college.
I wouldn't be surprised. We already saw him drop his own agency. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Brand drops him in the next year or two. After, I don't know what his contract is. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets dropped.
Well, he got that massive deal from them right out of college.
Yeah, and I'm serious with that because if I'm Jordan at the top of that brand, I see this guy the way he's performing, and I look at my other stars on that Jordan Brand. Who is it? I think they still have Westbrook, right? You have Luka on that Jordan Brand as well. And then you have Zion, and you see Zion, and you're like, this guy does not represent my brand at all. And Zion will get a big shoe brand with another company for sure. I'm not going to doubt that, but I would not be surprised if Jordan Brand looks back at the audit and says, Zion does not represent what we want, and Zion isn't selling the way that we want right now.
Yeah, 7 for $75 million was the deal he got out of college, and that was in 2019. So
we have
he played an NBA game was that early summer, right? I don't even know if the draft had happened yet. I think it was before the draft, and he got the 7 for $75, and now what does he have? 2 years left on it after this. So that's a good point. They might just cut him there, and he does nothing. He has a signature shoe. I've never even seen it.
I've never seen it either.
Oh, dude, this shoe sucks.
Yeah. So he has a signature shoe that I'm sure nobody buys. I play a lot of basketball. I've never seen anybody rocking Zions.
No.
I see more people rocking Luka's, more people rocking Jason Tatum's, more people. I've even seen Russell Westbrook's shoes, and I think they're ugly as hell. Nobody's rocking Zion's.
Nobody is rocking Zion's, bro.
Nobody's wearing his jersey anymore. Remember when everyone used to have a Zion jersey? No one's rocking the Zion jersey anymore. It's time to go. It's time to go.
Because he was marketed as the next LeBron. This is his shoe, just a total nothing.
Great
kind of shoe. Like, why would you even buy it? Really?
There's a Z in the middle. You see that?
Yep.
That's it.
But you know what? This is the type of shoe still, though, to your point. Like, if he was the guy he was supposed to be, this would be a shoe that you'd see everywhere.
Yeah.
Because they have a couple different colors, of course. That's what Jordan Nike always does, a couple different colors. And with Zion, they probably don't sell anything.
Nope.
He sucks. All right. Anything else today?
No, nothing else today. We had a packed show today. Really packed. I'm actually proud that we got it on in an hour and 5 minutes. We did a really good job.
Yeah, I'm impressed with our work here. Good basketball season so far. Excited to be with you for the rest of it. Thank you for joining us for it. Show is exclusively on YouTube as of now. I think we're going to keep it that way. I like the video format for our show, but make sure to keep your eyes out for a next episode of The Burrows coming in a week or two. Winter meetings. We're going to try and capitalize on some of the rumors flying around Juan Soto and others, even though nothing else seems to really matter in the world of baseball at this moment.
Kikuchi, man. Angels. Let's go.
Woo! So we will wrap this up here. We'll be back probably regularly scheduled Thursdays next week. Enjoy your Thanksgivings. Gabe, you have any big plans?
No, I have no big plans. Spending with the family. We're going to eat a lot of food. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm going to watch the Giants get destroyed. And then Joe Shane and Dable getting fired afterwards.
All right. Sounds like an eventful weekend. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.